In 1990, the Transnistrian region of Moldova declared its so-called independence. In 1992, the political standoff between Moldova and the self-proclaimed territory developed into an armed conflict. Analytic expert Leonid Litra knows about the war firsthand. A native of Moldova, he has been living in Ukraine for 6 years now. He says the conflict in his country started a few years before the war. Back then, Russia was trying to prevent post-Soviet countries, including Moldova and Georgia, from breaking away from the Soviet Union and moving into another sphere of influence. At the end of the 1980s, Moldovan officials held a pro-Western stance and sought rapprochement with neighboring Romania. The situation in modern Ukraine, which has chosen to move toward the European Union, is similar to that in Moldova, says the expert. So are the methods used by Russia to silence its neighbors who decided to leave its sphere of influence. There were Russian tanks, Russian weaponry. It was all in the arsenal of local separatists. Russia's sponsorship of the conflict, its position as a mediator in the conflict, it's what Russia is now trying to do in eastern Ukraine. They say, our people are not in the east. You have to negotiate with local separatists. According to diplomat Bogdan Yaramenko, many Moldovans did not support rapprochement with Romania. When the Soviet Union collapsed and the formation of a Moldovan statehood began, Russia decided to take advantage of the situation. As a result, Russia now has tested methods of turning occupational armed forces into so-called peacekeepers. And the result is that now we have a frozen conflict for more than 20 years. Since the beginning of the 1990s, Russia has promoted a permanent frozen military conflict in Transnistria, which it calls a peacekeeping mission. It restrains Moldova from taking the region back under its government's control by force. Irreconcilability of one side is based on Russian weapons and supplies. The situation in Ukraine is different. We are dealing with an open external military intervention of another state. It's an interstate conflict. The active war in Moldova lasted for 5 months. Now, 25 years later, the conflict still hasn't ended. According to military expert Ihor Romanenko, this should be a lesson for Ukraine to prevent frozen confrontation. He says that protracted conflicts are especially dangerous for breakaway territories. What happened in Moldova and Transnistria was degrading to the economy and social conditions. It's happening in Abkhazia. It's happening everywhere where Russia has paid these kinds of visits. As peacekeepers or not as peacekeepers, it doesn't matter. The goals and the results are the same. The so-called independence of Transnistria has only been recognized by similar breakaway republics under Russian control, including Abkhazia and South Ossetia.